it. आपके मार्क्स मिलेंगे, मार्क्स इंटरनल असेसमेंट में जाएंगे. ठीक है, चलो अब हम आगे बढ़ते हैं एड्रिनर्जिक सिस्टम पे. खत्म करना है एड्रिनर्जिक सिस्टम आज, काफी हमने कर लिया था. adrenergic system. So we are talking about now norepinephrine. How is norepinephrine different from epinephrine? You know, epinephrine was acting on practically all the receptors, alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1, beta 2. But norepinephrine has little or no effect on beta 2 receptors. Rest, everything is same. It acts on alpha 1, alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1. It increases both diastolic and systolic blood pressure because its action is there on both alpha 1 as well as beta 1 receptors. Compensatory vagal reflexes tend to overcome the direct chronotropic action of norepinephrine. So reflex bradycardia can occur because of increase in the compensatory vagal mechanisms. Okay. So, okay. Therapeutic uses of norepinephrine, it can be given in septic shock, acute severe hypotension and in cardiac arrest. Droxidopa is a synthetic prodrug of norepinephrine. It has got not much therapeutic use. Now coming to dopamine. Dopamine acts on dopamine receptors, that is D1 and D2, alpha 1 and beta 1 receptors. D1 receptor is present in the renal and mesenteric blood vessels and vasodilatation occurs. More sensitive at lower doses. So D1 receptors are more sensitive at lower doses. D1 receptors get activated. They are present in the renal and mesenteric blood vessels. This is an extremely important aspect of dopamine. Therefore, vasodilatation occurs. Increased flow through renal blood vessels is useful in cardiogenic shock when perfusion of the vital organs is compromised. Moderate to high dose is 5 to 10 micrograms per kg. Positive inotropic effect happens on heart. See, whenever it is about these drugs in autonomic nervous system, it is all about which all receptors they are acting and what is the sensitivity towards these receptors. In larger doses, more than 10 micrograms per kg, it can cause vasoconstriction via its effect on alpha 1 receptors. So low doses effect on D1, renal vasculature, little higher dose effect on beta 1, that is heart, still higher dose effect on alpha 1 causing vasoconstriction. Now therapeutic uses of dopamine. Dopamine is useful in the treatment of cardiogenic and septic shock in patients with reduced renal function. Before treatment, hypovolemia must be corrected. Useful in the treatment of severe congestive cardiac failure, particularly in patients with oliguria and impaired renal function. So it is very good for renal hemodynamics. Dopamine. Related drugs. Phenoldopam. It is effective on D1 and alpha 2 receptors used in severe hypertension. And then there is another related drug by the name of Dopex. Effect on D1 and D2 as well as on beta 2 receptors, and it is used in patients with low cardiac output. Then you have another drug, dobutamine. Dobutamine is not effective on any of the dopamine receptors. It is rather effective on beta 1 receptor. Okay? It increases the force of contraction of heart but not increase the heart rate significantly. It's used in the short-term treatment of cardiac decompensation after cardiac surgery, congestive heart failure, and acute myocardial infarction. Its half-life is very short, less than or equal to 2 minutes, and it can be given by IV infusion. Then you are coming to other alpha-1 receptor agonists, which include phenylephrine, methoxamine, midodrine. Now, what will these alpha-1 receptor agonists do? They will, of course, act directly as vasoconstrictors by activating alpha-1 receptor. They result in hypertension, causing, which further results in reflex bradycardia. Phenylephrine is also used as a nasal decongestant and as mydriatic. We told you that alpha receptors have got role in causing mydriasis. Now, drugs like nefazoline, oxymetazoline, and xylometazoline have been particularly used as nasal decongestants. They are used as nasal decongestants in patients with allergic or vasomotor rhinitis and in acute rhinitis with upper respiratory tract infection, and to check epistaxis. Its limitation can be rebound hyperemia or worsening of the symptoms or ineffective after local use. So that means they cannot be given forever. Their action has got, over a period, it just withers off. So it should not be given continuously. If systemic adverse effects can happen after oral use, but otherwise, since it is to be used locally in the nose, it should not cause much problems other than the local issues like rebound hyperemia and worsening of the symptoms. Then you have yet another drug by the name of midodrine. Midodrine is a prodrug which is converted to desglymirodrine. It is used in patients with postural hypertension, and adverse reaction is supine hypertension. Pseudoephedrine or phenylpropanolamine have been withdrawn. They were also alpha receptor agonists, but because of the risk of hemorrhagic shock, they have been withdrawn from the market. Now coming to alpha-2 adrenergic receptor agonists. You have been told enough that alpha-2 receptors are generally presynaptic. Okay? And they tend to decrease the blood pressure, heart rate, contractility, renin release. These are the effects of alpha-2 receptor agonists. I will just repeat. They decrease blood pressure, heart rate, contractility, renin release, and hence cause vasodilatation. So there is decreased sympathetic tone with the use of alpha-2 receptor agonists. One of the very important drugs of this group is clonidine. Activation of alpha-2 receptors in the brain causes inhibition of the sympathetic system. Suppression of the release of norepinephrine by presynaptic alpha-2 receptors. So, clonidine directly could act on the alpha-2 receptors present in the brain and inhibit sympathetic system. It could suppress the release of norepinephrine by presynaptic alpha-2 receptors, and it can also bind with the imidazoline receptors or the I receptors. Clonidine has got excellent oral bioavailability. Transdermal patches are also available. Sedation, bradycardia, sexual dysfunction, dry mouth, dermatitis, and constipation can happen. I'll repeat, adverse effects can be sedation, bradycardia, sexual dysfunction, dry mouth, contact dermatitis, and constipation. It can be used in the management of hypertension, but rebound hypertension also can happen because of abrupt withdrawal. Very many uses of clonidine. Management of withdrawal symptoms seen in the addicts after use of opioids, alcohol, or tobacco. When you will be taught central nervous system, you will be taught about the dependence to all these materials like opioids, alcohol, etc. So there is, whenever there is a withdrawal of from all these substances of abuse, there is sympathetic overactivity, and this sympathetic overactivity is dealt with by clonidine. Then it has been used for the management of hypertension, but as on date there are better drugs available. It can be used in the prophylaxis of migraine or in relief of pain. Clonidine is also used as a pre-anesthetic medication, provides sedation, anxiolytic, analgesic effect, hemodynamic stability, and reduces the anesthetic drug requirement. So clonidine is a very important drug. It can be asked in paper in your exam because of its so many varied uses and its adverse effects. So you have to prepare this drug well. I'm repeating. Its uses, adverse effects, very important. And how does it act? So we have read about the uses like withdrawal symptoms, hypertension, migraine, relief of pain, as pre-anesthetic medication, control of diarrhea in diabetic patients with autonomic neuropathy, diagnosis of pheochromocytoma, menopausal hot flushes, transdermal patches can be used. There is another sympathomimetic drug like methyl dopa. It has been used as an antihypertensive in pregnancy. Then you have tizanidine. It's a skeletal muscle relaxant used in the treatment of spasticity. Apraclonidine and brimonidine. Again, alpha receptor agonists used in the treatment of glaucoma. Moxonidine, rimenidine, also similar to clonidine. Imidazoline or I1 receptor agonist, longer half-life than clonidine. Then you have dexmedetomidine. Well, that's another selective alpha 2A agonist which is used as a pre-anesthetic medication to provide pre-operative sedation, analgesia, reduction in bronchial secretions and anxiety. It also reduces the need for frequent opioid use in the cancer patients. Now coming to yet another sympathomimetic drug like isoprenaline, also known as isoproterenol. It is a non-selective beta agonist. It has effect on beta 2 and beta 1 receptors. Beta 2 receptors will cause decreased peripheral resistance and decreased diastolic blood pressure. Beta 2 receptors are more sensitive to the effect of isoproterenol than beta 1. Beta 1 receptor stimulation little on the higher doses will cause systemic blood pressure rising. Effectively, the mean blood pressure decreases, and because of that, there is reflex tachycardia. This happens with the use of isoprenaline. Now coming to yet another group of sympathomimetic drugs known as beta 2 selective agonists. Beta 2 selective agonists are used in the treatment of asthma as a bronchodilator. Their advantage over non-selective beta agonists will be, of course, you must have receptor sensitivity, only then the undesirable effects due to the effect on the other receptors will be dealt with. So their advantage will be over non-selective agonists will be that they will not cause undesired cardiovascular effects which are happening because of beta 1 stimulation. The drugs in this category are salbutamol, terbutaline, formoterol and salmeterol. Salbutamol, terbutaline, formoterol and salmeterol. Now, after salbutamol, there is another beta 2 agonist known as ritodrine, which was developed as a uterine relaxant, used to delay the onset of premature labor. When you want the pregnancy to hold, you do not want uterus to be contracting. So, it is a uterine relaxant. Prevents the premature labor. Adverse effect will be skeletal muscle tremors, more common. Skeletal muscle tremors are common with almost all beta 2 agonists. Restlessness, anxiety, and tachycardia can also happen. Now, coming to indirectly acting adrenergic drugs. Like amphetamine. I think when I was talking about the mechanisms and the flow charts, you were told about amphetamine. Amphetamine is a potent CNS stimulant which is orally effective. It increases the alertness, decreases the sense of fatigue, and increased concentration and increased work capacity. It causes improved physical performance in athletes. Because of all these alerting effects that it has been used by athletes for improving their performance on the field. It also activates the this RAS and that is RAS sleep and rapid eye movement, and it causes wakefulness. Its effect of causing suppression of appetite has been used for the management of obesity. It increases both systolic and diastolic blood pressure. Tachycardia can be then followed by bradycardia because both the blood pressures are increased. Side effects will be dry mouth, metallic taste, psychological dependence, tolerance to anorectic action. Dry mouth can happen, metallic taste, psychological dependence, and tolerance to the anorectic effect. Therefore, it cannot be used much for the management of obesity. Uses can be narcolepsy when there is a lot of sleep because it increases alertness. It can be used in attention deficit hyperactive disorder in children because it will try and make children more focused. It has been tried in the management of obesity. Other analogues of amphetamine: methylphenidate, dextroamphetamine, pamolene, and methamphetamine. Yet another indirectly acting sympathomimetic is ephedrine. Ephedrine acts directly on the alpha and beta receptors, and directly also, it is mixed basically. Directly on alpha and beta receptors and indirectly also. Indirectly, it will cause the release of sympathomimetic amines from the nerve cells. It can be effective orally, resistant to MAO and COMT. These are the enzymes which degrade the sympathomimetics. It crosses blood-brain barrier and causes CNS stimulation. It is used in the treatment of bronchial asthma and hypotension, but not so much now because you would want to have a specific beta 2 receptor agonists for asthma. So with this, we have finished with the sympathomimetic amines, and now we can move on to the alpha receptor blockers. Okay. So what we have covered till now, we have covered in ANS, Introduction to the Autonomic Nervous System, cholinergic drugs, anticholinergic drugs, ganglion stimulants, ganglion blockers, sympathoadrenergic transmission, sympathomimetic drugs. Now we are coming to the blockers of sympathomimetic system, known as the alpha blockers and the beta blockers. Hopefully, I will be able to finish alpha blockers today, and we will be doing beta blockers on Saturday. Okay? So there are two main types of alpha receptors, alpha 1 and alpha 2. Just to recap, alpha receptors mediate many important actions of endogenous catecholamines. And these include alpha 1 receptor mediated vasoconstriction, alpha 2 receptor mediated inhibition of the release of norepinephrine and acetylcholine, because alpha 2 receptor is a inhibitory presynaptic receptor. Alpha 2 receptor mediated inhibition of the insulin release, inhibition of lipolysis. Actual inhibition of the sympathetic tone. All these are very important mechanisms by which the alpha receptors are going to be producing their effects. Let me repeat. Alpha 1 mediated vasoconstriction, alpha 2 mediated presynaptic, alpha 2 mediated inhibition of release of norepinephrine and acetylcholine, alpha 2 mediated inhibition of release of insulin and inhibition of lipolysis, and alpha 2 mediated central inhibition of the sympathetic system. Just remember this slide, it is extremely important. Just for the benefit of everybody, alpha adrenergic antagonists can be non-specific, specific alpha 1 antagonist or alpha 2 receptor antagonist. Non-selective alpha blockers. They include irreversible blockers, alpha blockers like phenoxybenzamine, or reversible alpha blockers like phentolamine and tolazoline. These are non-specific. They can act both on alpha 1 as well as on alpha 2. Irreversible is phenoxybenzamine. It has a very strong covalent binding with the receptor. And reversible are phentolamine and tolazoline. You also should understand that when you have to put something to therapeutic use, you would try and use reversible agents, not the irreversible ones. Now coming to selective alpha receptor blockers. These include prazosin, terazosin, doxazosin, alfluzosin, tamsulosin, silodosin. Just remember at least 2-3 names, prazosin, terazosin, doxazosin, tamsulosin. I think these 4 names are enough to be remembered. These are selective alpha 1 receptor blockers. Alpha 2 receptor blockers will be yohimbine and idazoxan. Yohimbine and idazoxan. So you have alpha 1 and alpha 2 receptors. You have selective alpha 1 receptor blocker and alpha 2 receptor blocker. I just read a question written by Abhinav Singh. He writes, "Ma'am, can students use amphetamine for better performance?" Well, you read that all the and all, but it is a drug of abuse, okay? And it is actually indirectly acting sympathomimetic. So over a period, its effect will go off. So I strongly not recommend the use of amphetamines by these students. It will be a drug of abuse, and it should not be taken by any of you or for anybody to improve or enhance the performance. So I hope I'm clear, Abhinav, very clear. That please don't try it. Now the thing is, Chitranjan is asking, can isoprenaline be used for low blood pressure patient? Well, one has to be very careful because isoprenaline will cause fall in blood pressure. So I don't think there is any great therapeutic use of isoprenaline as such. So these are the drugs of academic interest. So they are not used for therapy of any disorder for that matter. So just because these are important tools, you should know which drug is acting on which receptor and producing effect by what. So that is the thing. But strongly, isoprenaline has got hardly any therapeutic, definitely not in the patients of low blood pressure. I hope I am clear, Chitranjan. And I think I've answered you well, Abhinav. You have to respond. I don't want you to be carrying this message that let's all have amphetamine to improve our performance. Okay? Good. Getting this response was very important from you, Abhinav. And thanks, Chitranjan, for understanding the concept. So now we kind of, okay. So these are the alpha receptor blockers, alpha 1 and alpha 2 receptor blockers. Now there are some agents with additional alpha blocking properties. You know, they are not sole alpha blockers. There the alpha blocking property can be an additional property. Such drugs include ergotamine, ergot alkaloids. You will read elsewhere in pharmacology also. These are partial agonists and antagonists at alpha, dopamine and 5-HT receptors. Ketanserin is acting at the alpha 1 receptor and it's a 5-hydroxytryptamine antagonist. This has got additional alpha blocking property. Ketanserin. Chlorpromazine and haloperidol are both alpha as well as dopamine 2 receptor blockers. These are drugs with additional alpha blocking properties. Ergotamine, ergot alkaloids are partial agonists or antagonists at alpha, dopamine and 5-HT. See, they will make more sense when somebody will teach you 5-hydroxytryptamine later. Ketanserin has got alpha 1 blocking property along with 5-HT serotonin antagonist property. Chlorpromazine is dopamine 2 blocker along with being the alpha blocker. Now, pharmacological properties of alpha blockade. What will happen with alpha blockade? Well, it will all depend upon what kind of alpha blockade are we talking, alpha 1 or alpha 2. Pharmacological properties of alpha blockade includes cardiovascular system, blockade of alpha 1 vasodilatation. Alpha 1 receptor will cause vasoconstriction, so blockade of alpha 1 receptor will be vasodilator. Decrease in the peripheral resistance or hypotension. Magnitude of this effect is dependent upon the degree of sympathetic tone at the time of type the antagonist was administered. Thus, there is less hypotension in supine than in standing position. So, alpha blockers, particularly alpha 1 blockers, will cause vasodilatation and hypotension. Fall of blood pressure will be followed by reflex tachycardia. Reflex effects are exaggerated if the drug also has alpha 2 agonistic effects. Because antagonism of alpha 2 receptors will facilitate the release of norepinephrine presynaptically to further cause tachycardia-like effect. I hope this point is clear. I'm going to stop at this. I hope this point is clear. All alpha blockers will cause reflex tachycardia, but particularly alpha 2 blockers will cause even more severe tachycardia because alpha 2 blocking will lead to increased norepinephrine release and then more tachycardia. Am I clear? Mhm. So alpha blockers will block the vasoconstriction and hypertensive effects of exogenous sympathomimetic amines. For example, pressor response to phenylephrine are completely blocked by alpha blockers. Pressor response to epinephrine can be transformed to depressor response because of stimulation of beta 2 receptors by epinephrine. This is known as vasomotor reversal of Dale. I'm just going to repeat, when an alpha blocker is given before giving epinephrine, then normally epinephrine will cause rise in blood pressure. But here, epinephrine will cause fall in blood pressure because alpha receptors are blocked, and fall of blood pressure with low doses of epinephrine is happening because of beta 2 receptor stimulation. So this is known as vasomotor reversal of Dale. I hope this phenomena is clear. Vasomotor reversal of Dale means whenever an alpha blocker is given before adrenaline, there will be, instead of rise of blood pressure, fall of blood pressure. Alpha 2 antagonists increase the sympathetic outflow by action on the CNS. Opposite to the effect of alpha 2 agonists, this potentiates the release of norepinephrine from the sympathetic nerve endings, leading to activation of alpha 1 receptors in vascular smooth muscles and beta 1 receptor in the heart, among others. I'll just repeat. Alpha blockers potentiate the release of norepinephrine from sympathetic nerve endings, leading to activation of the alpha 1 receptors in the vascular smooth muscle and beta 1 receptor in the heart. So whenever by alpha blocker you have got release of norepinephrine, it will cause vasoconstriction and then effect on the heart. I'm just trying to see how much of it is left. Now, other actions of alpha adrenergic antagonists are alpha 1 antagonists relax the non-vascular smooth muscles such as bladder, neck, and prostate, leading to decreased resistance to the urinary flow. So, this is important reason that alpha blockers are used in the treatment of benign prostatic hypertrophy. They relieve the urinary symptoms. Activation of alpha 2 receptors cause inhibition of insulin release. So blockade of these receptors will facilitate insulin release. Okay, I hope this is clear. Nasal stuffiness, congestion of the nasal mucosa. Alpha blockers will cause nasal stuffiness because of vasodilatation and congestion of nasal mucosa. Alpha blockers will cause miosis because alpha agonists of phenylephrine were causing mydriasis because of contraction of the radial muscle of the iris. Failure of ejaculation because of inhibition contraction of vas deferens and ejaculatory duct. So ejaculatory issues can happen with the use of alpha blockers when they are being given for the management of benign prostatic hypertrophy. Phentolamine and tolazolene, competitive antagonists for both alpha 1 and alpha 2 receptors. Imidazoline derivatives have got short duration of action. They stimulate GI smooth muscle and gastric secretion. Phentolamine is poorly absorbed from GIT and given by IV route. So phentolamine and tolazolene are competitive antagonists of both alpha 1 and alpha 2 receptors. Imidazoline derivative is a short duration action. They stimulate GI smooth muscle and gastric secretion. Phentolamine is poorly absorbed from GIT and therefore given by IV route. The therapeutic uses of alpha blockers. They can be given for the diagnosis and management of pheochromocytoma. They can prevent dermal necrosis after inadvertent extravasation of a receptor agonist. They can be used to treat hypertensive crisis, peripheral vascular disease because they cause vasodilatation, hypertension due to clonidine withdrawal and cheese reaction. Alpha blockers can be given. Now, adverse effects of alpha blockers include postural hypotension, reflex cardiac stimulation, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and precipitation of peptic ulcer. So these are all the side effects. Most important is postural hypotension because of vasodilatation, reflex tachycardia, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and they can precipitate peptic ulcer. Phenoxybenzamine forms covalent bond with the alpha receptors. Effect lasts for 3 to 4 days and can also inhibit the uptake of catecholamines into the nerve terminals. It penetrates blood-brain barrier and as oral absorption by phenoxybenzamine is erratic. See, phenoxybenzamine as an alpha blocker has got no therapeutic purpose much. But it is basically for the academic interest, you should realize that it is a covalently binding irreversible drug which hits and runs, and the inhibition remains forever. Therapeutic use is hardly any now, but it was used at some point at the management of pheochromocytoma, inoperable malignant pheochromocytoma, sometime for the treatment of benign prostatic hypertrophy. No longer used now because you have more specific drugs. Because of peripheral vasoconstriction, all these therapeutic use not much of interest other than the fact that it was used at some point for the management of pheochromocytoma. Now, adverse effects to the use of phenoxybenzamine is postural hypotension, reflex cardiac stimulation, reversible inhibition of ejaculation, salt and water retention, cardiac arrhythmia, fatigue, sedation, and nausea. Selective alpha adrenergic blockers, prazosin. Selective alpha 1 receptor antagonist, it has 1000 times greater affinity for alpha 1 than for alpha 2. It inhibits phosphodiesterase, thus increased cyclic AMP. By not blocking alpha 2 receptors, it does not promote norepinephrine release and hence no tachycardia. So this is a specific alpha 1 receptor antagonist. No tachycardia because it does not block alpha 2 receptor. Prazosin decreases the cardiac preload and afterload. It suppresses the sympathetic outflow from CNS. It has got favorable effect on the lipid profile. Relaxes smooth muscle in bladder, neck, prostatic capsule, prostatic urethra, and hence improves urinary flow in benign prostatic hypertrophy. Hypertension, given at bedtime, reduces the risk of postural hypertension. Used to treat BHP, for Raynaud's disease, that is vasoconstricting disease, and congestive heart failure. So these are the uses of selective alpha 1 receptor blockers. Very important adverse effect is first dose effect. There is marked postural hypotension and fainting which occurs 30 to 90 minutes after first dose. It can cause impotence, nasal congestion, GI upset, salt and water retention. Then you have others alpha 1 receptor blockers like beyond prazosin are terazosin and doxazosin. Prazosin has got short half-life, 2 to 3 hours. Terazosin 12 hours, doxazosin 20 hours. So it can be, these new drugs can be given once daily, well absorbed after oral administration, used for hypertension and benign prostatic hypertrophy, induction of apoptosis in prostatic smooth muscle, and hence limit the cell proliferation. So terazosin, doxazosin, can be used for the management of hypertension and in benign prostatic hypertrophy. In BHP, they can induce apoptosis of the prostatic smooth muscles and hence limit the cell proliferation. Yet another alpha 1 receptor antagonist is alflu, alfuzosin. There's one question from Vivek. He asks me, how prazosin suppresses sympathetic outflow from the CNS? Well, CNS, whichever alpha 1 receptors are present, they will be blocked if at all they are there. Those alpha 1 receptors are blocked, the sympathetic outflow will also be reduced. What do you think? Mainly, sympathetic outflow reduction is an effect of uh, prazosin is not a 1 receptor agonist, it is an antagonist. Alfuzosin is another related compound used in the treatment of benign prostatic hypertrophy, not approved for treatment of hypertension, shorter half-life, extensively metabolized by liver cytokine enzymes, should be avoided in hepatic insufficiency and patients at risk for prolonged QT syndrome. Concomitant administration with other CYP3A4 inhibitors should be contraindicated. So alfuzosin is a related compound which is not approved for treatment of hypertension, and it also acts by 7A receptor predominant in human bladder and prostate, more efficacious in the treatment of benign prostatic hypertrophy with less effects on blood pressure. It also can cause abnormal ejaculation and intraoperative floppy iris syndrome as major side effects. Now we have covered alpha blockers. Now we are talking about beta blockers. This is a competitive antagonist that is selective alpha 2 receptors. Readily enters CNS where it can act to increase the blood pressure and heart rate. It also enhances motor activity and reduces tremor. So it has been used in past to treat male sexual dysfunction. It's a competitive antagonist at the selective alpha 2 receptors. So this also has got no therapeutic use as on date, but its only purpose is for academic interest now. You must know that there is a specific alpha 2 receptor blocker which is yohimbine. And that's about all for today's lecture. So let me ask if there is any query, any questions. So we have covered alpha blockers today. We will be talking about beta blockers in our next lecture. So